Well, I'm back. I'm here for episode 2, and I'm so glad you're joining me. Thanks for being here for Jesus Coffee and Wine. I'm really excited for you to meet my guest today, Danielle Masidi. She is an absolute doll. She's somebody I actually went to high school with and have stayed connected to, honestly, via social media for years. We graduated 20-something years ago. But our lives have actually taken very similar paths. We both got married relatively young. She younger than me, but still relatively young. We both had babies, both went through divorces, both got remarried, both had little ones much later in life. And so I really enjoyed listening to her and hearing her share her story, which is not necessarily one of joy and, rainbows and sunshine. Not that any of us live that life every day, but she is living out her faith in a way that is truly inspiring. And you'll hear from her exactly how difficult the path has been to get to where she is today. But her faith has just been, it's so inspiring. And I just really enjoyed hearing how she clung to her relationship with God through everything she's been through. I've titled this episode Beauty from Ashes because I really think when you're talking about divorce and looking at both her life and mine now, that's exactly what you're looking at. You're looking at redemption in a way that we don't deserve, but are both very extremely eternally grateful for. So I'm going to let her share her story and shut my mouth, and hope you enjoy this next episode of Jesus Coffee and Wine. I'm just so happy that you're here and that we connected. Actually, before we even get started, I feel like the coolest thing about having you on tonight is that when I came up with this idea for this crazy podcast, I had a short list of people that I thought I wanted to reach out to that I just felt like had a story to share that felt very similar to mine, and just one that somebody I wanted to connect with over this. And you were on that list, and we haven't talked in a long time, years. And we went to high school together. And we've stayed in touch on social media and been connected, but not really hung out, but we have very parallel stories. And I had you in my notes app. And then the next day you messaged me and was just you were so encouraging about this podcast and my heart and what I was doing or what I was setting out to do. And so we knew immediately this was something we had to do. And that God was kind of saying okay, girls, let's go.
Definitely.
So I'm so glad you're here.
To be on here.
Yeah, well, I'm honored to have you. So this topic that we're going to tackle tonight, I think is one that it's difficult for a lot of people, Christian or not. Mm-hmm. Especially as Christians, though. Both of us have been married at a younger-ish age. How old were you when you first got married?
I was 21.
21, so super young.
Yes.
To my children, that is very young.
Very young.
Very young. And then we both got married, had little kids, went through divorce, remarried, and then little kids again much later in life for both of us. Not as late for you. You're a couple of years. Your little ones are a couple of years older than mine, but just this very parallel story. So I'm going to let you tell your story a little bit, just about kind of your journey through that process of marriage, divorce, remarriage, and we can go from there.
Yeah. I know, being 42 years old, there's such a huge history. I feel like it's so hard to get it all out there, and as you know, I think you've even said so yourself, in my past life. And I say that all the time because you just feel like you've had various stages of life, just different lives. The life when you were a kid and the life in your first marriage. And there's even a life in between, the singleness and remarriage. So, and I've gone through so many different phases and ebbs and flows of my faith also. We did not necessarily grow up in church. My parents would pray with us every night, but they divorced at a young age. And the way I grew up, there was a lot of arguing, a lot of, just it was not a good environment. I don't have a whole
Mhm.
lot of good memories of when my parents were together.
Mhm.
So they divorced when I was in 5th grade, and I
And
watched.
you have a big family too. Sorry, not to interrupt, but
Yeah,
I think that's important. You have a really big family, which I can relate to now, but I didn't grow up in. I have a big family, but I didn't grow up in that. So that's a whole other
yeah.
dynamic.
My mom and dad together had 6 children. We were really,
Yeah.
really close with my mom, and then when they separated, my dad said his pastor told him, because my dad was very adamant that, well, the mom, I've got all girls. My mom had only one boy, so the rest were all girls. And
Mhm.
he's like, they're all girls. They're going to need to be with their mom. That's just how it goes. And the pastor said, oh, absolutely not. And he said, you fight for them. You've got all girls. They're going to be looking to you for what a man is supposed to be. So he fought for us. And in that moment, I hated him for it.
I
I
bet.
wasn't I wasn't close to him. He worked a lot, a lot, a lot. And we didn't have that relationship with him. And so it was upsetting. And then
When you say he fought for you guys, was that to have custody or just split or joint? What did that
we
look
did
like? That
they did have joint custody, and we did have split time. It wasn't really structured so much, but they got
Mhm.
pretty flexible, and they became just best friends with each other. So that was
Wow.
my experience growing up, was that they were each other's best friends. But we kind of grew not as close with my mom because she'd get upset, at my dad would have structure at home. We had to have
Mhm.
chores done. I had to have her homework done. There was like rooms clean. There was order, and my mom
Yeah.
was the fun one. And so it was hard. And even as an adult, I look at it. I grew up thankful that they divorced, and
Mm.
felt really guilty about that. But I watched so much beauty in both of them and in their relationship
Mhm.
after the divorce. Really, my father's change and who he became as a single dad of so many kids
Mhm.
was the tangible proof of the Lord for me.
Wow.
I just, I saw he just became a teddy bear, and he was strong, but not, he was just so soft. And
Mm.
he would cry and, hug us. And it was just, and he came to every single sporting event. He found a way. And
Mhm.
it was just like, he was just always there. And he had us going to church every single Sunday. And I remember it being a fight to get to church. And now, I'm sure, as you know, as a parent, we laugh at the kind of people we turn into trying to get our families in the morning.
It's a whole thing.
It
The
is.
whole thing. Yeah.
Yes. um, so we watched that. We'd watch, my dad being a lunatic with us and getting us all in the car, 6 kids, and to church. And
Mhm.
we would not pay attention. And my sisters and we would just kind of like kick our feet at each other, nudge each other,
Mhm.
make each other laugh. And we just weren't, we saw this is what we do. We go to church.
Yeah. Sure. Yeah. No.
So I grew up saying I'm never going to be divorced. And here
Yeah.
I am.
Yep. Well, it's never say never, right? I said the same
Right.
thing. I came from a divorced house as well. My father and my mother were divorced when I was 2-ish, and my father moved out of state for various reasons, and I had a relationship with him, but he wasn't present. He wasn't here just by nature of, location. And I had a wonderful stepfather from the age of 5 on, but it is something that affects you deeply and greatly no matter what age. And yeah, I made the same declarations. I'll never get divorced. I'm gonna do it right. And I'm gonna have a nuclear family, and I'm never doing this. Here we are. So far
Yeah.
we're killing it. So what is
But we just had each other. We got into a lot of trouble, and my older sister became sort of the mother figure in the house.
mm,
She was responsible for the cooking and ironing clothes, things like that. And you could sense how much she hated it. Um,
that's a lot of pressure for a young woman who's not in that stage of life with her
yes.
own family yet. That's a lot. I
And her
can't
being
imagine.
the oldest of, my mother's first and the oldest girl, and it I have seen in my own life how your oldest child is the one that you're the most strict with. And it's like,
Mm-hmm.
and then you just kind of, okay, I've learned a little bit here and there. You gain more wisdom. And by the last
Mm-hmm.
one, it's like they're just running off doing whatever they want.
Yeah. Yep.
Well, it turned out that way with
It's
my dad and us too.
yeah.
So, I always looked up to her. I loved all of her friends. She was my everything. So, I was a freshman when she was a senior, and we cheered on the same cheerleading team. I made the varsity team, and so we were just really close. And when she graduated, I just went into just a big depression.
Did she leave and go away to college
She
or?
didn't go away, but she did leave. She
Mm-hmm.
had a boyfriend who she's now married to. Um, and they were very close, and my father was very strict with her.
Yeah.
He told her to get out then, or there was just a big fight, and so she's like, okay, and she left, and she moved in with her boyfriend, and I was just so sad and so upset, and we continued to see her all the time, but it was just different. She wasn't in school, she wasn't
Sure.
at home. So I'm like, I am going to graduate early. I'm going to get out of here because I do not want to be the next person responsible for cooking and cleaning. Spoiler alert, like I am not a cook at all. Cooking. I don't like spending more time to make something than it takes to eat it. So I I remember there was one time I made a meal for the family and it was chicken cutlets and the middle was raw. I remember my brother, like he just inhales food. And
Yeah.
the rest of us, we're getting to the middle and we're all noticing that it's like raw. And my dad
Oh
goes,
my gosh.
he goes, honey. And I go, oh no. And then my brother's got an empty plate with crumbs and he's like, what? I just can't.
Yeah, but there's something to be said for undercooking chicken when you're not cooking all the time. You were trying, it was new. I did that once. We had a couple over from our church, and I was like, oh, yeah, I cook all the time. I love to cook. You know what? I'm going to make you chicken French. And I remember, I don't know what, they got here early. They arrived early, and I made chicken French, and I did the whole thing, and I put it in the oven to finish cooking. But they came early, and I was like, oh, it should be fine. And I took it out. And as we're sitting at the table and like cutting our food, I'm looking across and I could see the chicken was raw and the guy was like trying to just like move it around his plate. I was mortified. I was like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. I swear I actually am a good cook. So I've been there, but also at least you weren't like touting to be some chef and you,
Right.
you were just trying. So I feel like that there's a lot better excuse there.
A big problem of mine, though, it's like I can't take failure. I am just like such a perfectionist. Like, okay, I can't cook. That's it. Like, I'm just over it. I'm doing it.
And that was it.
That was
You're
it.
like, I'm never doing this again. I'm definitely not making cutlets again.
Right. I make a few things, but anyways. So I just did not want that. I knew I saw how proud my sister was, and I just wanted to graduate early and be done. And I spent my whole first year of high school with my older sister's friends. Like, it was just like they were all the cool people, and it just treated me like their own little sister, and I loved it. There were a couple of friends that I held on to during cheerleading, anyways, and graduated early, went away to UB, and then just made all kinds of horrible choices. Nothing too horrible considering most, by comparison of many, but
sure.
Still. I look back at that year and I'm
I've
like,
been there.
Lord, thank you for just protecting me.
Can you imagine if we had the social media these kids have?
No.
When we were in
No. I wasn't even 18. I've got a 17-year-old and a 19-year-old, and I can't imagine them being away at college and parties and the things that I was participating in. So I'm just like, I finished that year and I think I passed like one class because I didn't show up to any of them. I was just like, this is freedom. Like all of a sudden, this is just like, this is life. And I would come home a lot because I missed my older brother, and I would come and I used to babysit his kids a lot, and he would, because he was on a hockey team. So I would come over and babysit and then spend the night. So some of his friends, hockey friends, would come over and hang out, and I started dating one of my brother's friends. And
And how much older?
He was only maybe 3 years. I think he's 3 years older. Maybe. Yeah, 3 years. So, and he was just so sweet about, asking my brother's permission to ask me out. And I was just so intrigued by him. And so I'm 18 at this point because I had just finished my first year of college, and we're
Mhm.
dating. We're pretty inseparable. And I
Mhm.
remember my dad pulled him aside in the garage and he said, "She's finishing college." And he's like, "Yeah." And he's like, "Okay." Like, and he was in college. He was going to that actually. He's like, "Okay." I told my dad, I'm like, um, I'm not going back to school because I can't cheer there because I didn't pass anything. So in any case, I was like, I'm just gonna work. I'm gonna pay for college, but I'm gonna do the 2+2 program, and just kept getting my father's approval of everything. Even though I
Mhm.
was 18, I had already been living off camp, like off out of my house. I was in
Yeah.
college for a year. So when I came home, I watched from my sister. She did the same thing.
Sure.
They got married at 21 and they had this perfect life. They lived in an apartment together, and I just emulated her. And I still do. I'm
Yeah.
like, this is how life goes. And so we lived together, and I did exactly everything I said I was going to do. I worked full time. I went to MCC, and then I went to St. John Fisher, got my degree. At this time, I get married. I'm 21, and we're family planning. But we weren't going to church. Like, I wasn't going to church. I just had my faith. I had my relationship with the Lord, and that was
Yeah.
good enough.
Did your husband come from a family that went to church?
No.
Was he a believer? What was his faith
So
situation?
he grew up in the Roman Catholic Church.
I went to Catholic school for a few years in elementary school, and then my ex-husband was extremely Catholic. And I say extremely because when we were dating, he went to mass every morning, and that was my uh, the way I validated that he was like this man of God to my family.
So funny. So I remember I was very close with my uncle. He was living in England. He had
Mm-hmm.
left, started a church there with his family, and so he would come back and visit quite a bit. So I flew him back to come do our premarital counseling, and he's like, this is usually quite a few weeks that I do this. This isn't just like
Mm-hmm.
a one session thing, but
Yeah.
I'll spend as much time with you guys. We'll kind of go through as much as we can, and we'll go from there. And
Yeah.
so it was like I put it all on my uncle to validate if he was, the one for me, or that we
Mm-hmm.
were. I didn't even know this term at that time, the equally yoked term at all. So he asked him, what is your faith? What do you believe? And he just said, I don't believe you need to go to a church or be in a building to be a Christian. It is a personal relationship with the Lord, and that's in my heart, and that's it. And so he's like, okay. And I'm like, yeah, that sounds right to me.
Yeah. And you were, again, just reiterating, you were 21.
Yes.
Okay. I'm just pointing that out.
Yeah. That, like, pretty much like raised ourselves while my dad
Yep.
was
Yep.
trying his best to support us. And
Yeah.
so, yes. And
Well, I mean, just to that point, I grew up in a house with, like I said, my parents were divorced, but my stepdad was in my life since I was 5 years old. We were always very close and still are to this day. But having that experience of my mom and my dad parenting me together in a house, like I did not have that experience. So when I came to the age where I was ready to get married, or thought I was, and a similar experience where I just was like, no, I excused a lot of things that were not necessarily in line with what I had always thought I wanted growing up, being taught in the church and in youth group, and even from my family. Hey, you want a man of God, and if you're a Christian woman, like you should be equally yoked, and all of that terminology that we learn, but we don't necessarily understand what it means. um, I was just looking for people to say, yes, this is okay. This is good. Do this. And no one really sat me down and said, are you sure are you sure you want this? Is this in line with everything you thought you wanted when it comes to a man of faith leading you? And it was not the picture of the marriage that I had always wanted, but I made it fit for what I wanted in the moment. And my aunt, she was the only one that challenged me on it, but I shunned her quickly and listened to everybody else that was like, no, this is great. This is fine. Go ahead. I was like, great. That's all I needed. Right. So it's like you needed your uncle to say, okay, seal of approval. And then you were like, great, this is now, I have the okay to do this.
My father just didn't really like him until the day we got married, which was
Wow.
so funny. But he was just like, all the things he didn't like about him were all the things I loved about him. Strong.
Do you think it was your answer though to being officially out of the chaos of your childhood?
Yeah.
I mean, I wanted so badly to be married. So that was I had tunnel vision that I want to be married, I want to be a wife, I want to have a family. And so at the age where it made sense and this person was in front of me and also willing and asked me, I was like, "Yep." Right? So like for you, it sounds like, do you feel that? Do you feel like it was kind of like this escape?
Yes, I'm stubborn. I'm much more moldable now. I guess life does that to you. And when you realize that you don't know anything and you're not in control of anything, life changes you. But
Yeah, sure does.
how could I be wrong? Like I'm not wrong. I'm smart. So it was all about proving no, he is the one and he is wonderful. And I did love him very much. And it was sort of like us against the world. Like,
and now in your 40s and with young women as daughters, you're like, your brain's not even developed at 21. I mean, what is it, 26, they say?
something like that. I don't know.
Listen, if my girls are listening, it's at least 26. You don't need to Google it. We just know. Yeah, I would say 30, but and I have this conversation with both of my girls all the time that, well, what age do you think is okay to get married? Like that's the excitement of a teenage girl looking forward. I remember that vividly. But I'm like, we have funny conversations about it, but I'm like 30 is probably great. If it's before that, we'll have to have a lot of sit downs because knowing what I know now, I would have sat my 25-year-old self down and said, pump the brakes.
Yeah. So I just, my life, we had children.
How old were you when you had your first?
23.
Okay. So 2 years into marriage.
Yes.
Or roughly. Okay.
Yes. I wanted to be pregnant immediately. And I remember our first anniversary, we were just fighting so bad about it. Cause I'm like, you lied to me. You said you wanted children. And he that was the first time I saw him just really break down. And he said, I'm scared. I don't know how to be a good dad. I felt really close to him at that point when he showed that vulnerability about being scared. And sort of like, okay, well, I don't care. You're going to figure it out. We're going to do fine. Yeah. We're doing this. We were having children. That's like my lifelong dream to be a mom. Yeah. So we did. We had my first when I was 23, and we had another one shortly after that when I was 25. So
yeah,
really, I knew that my mother would always say, I just kept having kids because these kids are what made me happy. Your father doesn't make me happy, but you kids do. You fulfill me. Like we were her everything, and so I didn't want that. I knew that marriage comes before your children. I didn't understand it at first when my mother told me that because she said she doesn't. That was her problem, as that she loved us more than she loved her father. And I remember thinking that was so odd to me. How could you love a spouse over your child? And now I can't imagine it any other way. I just had such a horrible view of what marriage was.
That's a really interesting topic because, I think when I had my kids in my first marriage, I had a miscarriage first before I had my son, who's now 16, and then my daughter is 14. When I had my miscarriage and then I had my son and my daughter, and my marriage was not where it should have been, and ultimately ended in divorce because of that. But at the time, the kids did take over this space that was like, they were my everything. They were my joy. They were my sorrow. They were my focus. They were my purpose. And my marriage was like, yeah. Right. And so, and look, it takes two to grow. It takes two to fail. And so there's a lot of reasons why we landed in divorce. The children being the focus, I can look back and go, that was detrimental. That was detrimental for both of us in different ways. But now being in a blended family situation, I understand more so the importance of how strong your marriage needs to be above your kids. And that's not over his kids or over my kids. It's over our unit, over the kids. Because if our marriage isn't strong, they all suffer.
Yeah.
And so it took me going through that. And I listen, I don't want anybody to have to go through that to learn that lesson. It's an
No.
important one,
Yeah.
but I definitely got it wrong the first time around. And it took the pain and the brokenness of a divorce and a second marriage to see how critical it is to have your marriage be, God, spouse. And I always knew that was like the rule, but I was like, I don't really get that. Right? I get it now. I get it.
Yeah. To me, that was just the church answer. That wasn't.
Yeah, exactly. Like, okay.
Right. That's the answer you write in your book when you're doing your premarital counseling.
Yeah. Right. I'm going to fill in the right bubble because I want 100.
Right.
Yeah.
And now, fast forward a little, spoiler, my husband and I, my second husband, final husband, only husband for the rest of my life, we just started premarital counseling at our church. And it's just such a huge passion of mine because of all of this. Like, I don't want anyone to go through divorce. So yes, we were not growing together. And we didn't have a relationship. We didn't date. We didn't do any of that. And we did life together.
Mm-hmm.
We did, once I had my first daughter, I knew I wanted to raise her in the church. I wanted her to grow up knowing the Lord. I wanted all of that.
Sure.
And my uncle wound up starting his own home church there. And so we started going to his house. And then it was just me going to his house, me and the kids. And my older sister, I don't want to drag him somewhere. I was just so adamant. I did not want to have my marriage be torn apart because I'm forcing something. So finally, my uncle showed up to his work one day and he said, listen, your little girls, your children are going to look to their father to what is important. They know mom loves anything and everything, and they can splash a bunch of paint on a piece of paper and they call it, this is the greatest work of art of all time.
Yeah.
Whereas dad, it's like, we want to wow dad. We want to please dad. What's cool to dad and important to dad. So if you're not going, then it's not really a big deal. It's not a big thing. It's not important. So it's important for their sake that you come. And he said, so even if it's just once a month. And so he's like, okay. I never looked at it that way. And I certainly never looked at it that way. And so I said, so I was really excited that he was on board with that. But then there was always something. There was always a tournament or something. And he still wasn't coming. It was not a priority. So we just were really growing apart a lot. We started fighting all the time. We were fighting a lot. He was the best person to argue with because he said all the right things. I think he really meant them. He really wanted them to be true. And I always told him that. I'm like, I know you mean well. I know you mean you want to follow through with the things that you say. You just can't. You just wouldn't. And it just got to a point where I was just so broken. I just felt like I wasn't chosen.
Yeah.
I wasn't loved and just rejected. And
I've always said that a lie can look like, mean what you say and say what you mean.
Yeah.
So your intention, or you don't think you're lying, but you are. And and in a marriage, that can be like death by 1,000 cuts.
Yeah.
Right? Just be honest.
Yeah.
When you're sitting at home with 2 little kids, crying because it's been a long day, crying because you're managing them and your career and your family and all the things, it's not an excuse for divorce. Those little nicks and cuts end up wounding you so deeply, right? Yeah. So it's like that is, the intention might not have been to lie to you, but you get to a breaking point.
Right. Yes. So
in any relationship.
Yeah. And we were fighting a lot. I watched him just act in a way that was out of character for him. And it reminded me a lot of some memories I had of my father when they were married. And I said, I can't have my kids growing up with this. I go, well, I don't bring out the best in you. You don't bring out the best in me. This isn't what we want for our lives. You read about in marriage, the number one thing that a wife needs is security. And that's true. I didn't feel safe. I didn't feel secure. I didn't feel like I could trust him. I just broke down. And I had,
Mhm.
some people in my life that were really just drawn to my faith. And I started realizing, my husband, he loved me. But he loved me in spite of my faith, didn't
Mhm.
love my faith or my heart. It was almost like that was a thing he dealt with, like someone deals with
Sure.
someone who golfs all the time.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So I just started seeing him in a different light. I just saw him differently, and I couldn't see him as the man I loved anymore. And I said, "We got to go to counseling. We've got to go." And he was like, "Absolutely not." Until I was like, I can't do this anymore. And he's like, "Okay, fine. Let's go to counseling. Let's just go." So it was just another thing to check off for both of us.
Mhm.
For me,
Mhm.
I was already done. In fairness,
Yeah.
it was like I was going to counseling to say I did it, like I tried. And for him, he didn't try because it was just like, okay, I this time she's really upset. So now I'll go to this counseling, check that off the list. It's better. He didn't put in the work. I didn't put in the work.
You know, what you're saying about just those, you're like, I don't feel like I love him anymore or in that way. And so deciding to dig in when there's so much disconnect and so much discord, that's, I don't want to say it's impossible. I know people do it, and but here we are, right? Neither one of us did. We took different paths. But that's a tough concept. And I don't know how you feel about it now. I mean, obviously then you had.
Yeah, I feel differently about it now, and I would say more so in counseling other people on the other
Mhm.
side. Your heart will lie about anything. If it doesn't align with the word, then it's not it it gets it's gonna that's where the enemy knows to get you, is in
Yep.
your heart. So, I think in hindsight, I definitely understand now what is meant by love is a decision. I know what's meant
Mhm.
by your feelings don't matter. They
Mhm.
matter, and everything comes in,
They
and
exist.
they
Yeah.
do. The enemy will use truth against you.
Mhm.
He doesn't have to make stuff up all the time. He can take the tiniest little thing and turn it
Mhm.
into something horrible, and
Sure.
that's what it and without being aware of that or really in the word, and, uh, you can't know the Lord, at least now in this time through of my life and my faith journey. I was like, I made my own God, essentially. My older sister uses a term called vending machine God. It's like you're picking from a vending machine what you want, what you
Mhm.
like and what you don't like, or what you're going to follow and what you're not going to
Yeah.
follow. I just held on to He loves me. And
Mhm.
just like I love my children, no matter what they do, I love them.
Yeah.
And it was like, I couldn't grasp the fact that I'm making choices that are now going to affect the rest of my life, the rest of my
Mhm.
children's life and their lives, like, their kids' lives, like, this was everything that I didn't want, what I thought I never was gonna
Yeah.
be, and that huge divorce word was just the most awful thing that I could.
Mhm.
I felt like there wasn't anything worse, and my family did not support it. It was just they didn't I don't share, personal things. It was
Right.
just not for anyone else. That's was in our marriage and
Well,
only
it was
for us.
probably confusing for them. I mean, I experienced a lot of that too, and it was confusing for almost everyone around us why we were getting divorced.
Yeah,
And I, to this day, what I've said and will continue to say to people is, you didn't live in the house with us. You weren't in the house. You weren't in the room. You weren't. You weren't part of the deterioration that took place over years, not weeks, not months, not days, like it seemed to all of you.
right.
Again, it took both of us to deteriorate. And, you know, it, I could go on and on about all the reasons and all the things, but it doesn't matter at this point. But back then, I remember all I could say to everyone is, you didn't live it.
Right.
to your point about, feelings and understanding it now, I do understand that it is that love is a choice. But I say that in a way that I look at it so completely different now, having gone through what I've gone through and looking back and understanding the ramifications of my decisions and, the ripple effect of your choices. But going back long before the divorce happened, right? Like, I don't look at the divorce necessarily as the problem. The problem was all the way back to what we were talking about and making the decision to be in a relationship and go through a marriage when it was not the best for me then.
Right.
I ended up reaping the consequences of those decisions much later. I'm not trying to excuse my divorce. I'm just saying I can clearly see now that,
Right.
yes, maybe the choices in that moment were difficult, but they stemmed from a lot of other bad decisions prior to that.
Yes. So it was almost like once he knew, okay, this is the decision, then we just got to move on. And
Mm-hmm.
the divorce happened pretty quickly from there. It was like 6 months later, we were divorced. We had been together for 12 years and we were married for 9, together for 12 years. But it was like, okay, I got to move on. Like, you're not coming back.
Yeah.
Like, he kept trying. I needed to know my heart was loved. And
Mm-hmm.
it was just not there. And so he's like, okay, well, then we need to be done. And I'm like, agreed, fine. He wanted the house and said, fine. So I started new, new furniture, new everything. I didn't want to empty out the house that they were.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I still had almost every day. We had a great agreement. We were still friendly. We were able to be friends
Mm-hmm.
for a while until he met his now wife. And again, in hindsight, being now remarried, I can see as a new wife coming into a new relationship that has an ex spouse and children,
Mm-hmm.
you kind of need your place in that family and not the ex still around and in it.
Mm-hmm.
But that's not how I grew up. My parents were best friends. Like,
Yeah.
what do you mean? Like, you think I want to be around, you guys? I don't.
Yeah.
This is got for the kids, right? So it was a lot of tension. It was a lot of, arguing still, like, you're not following through with what you agreed and all of the agreement. And he's like, yeah, well, that was before someone else came in the picture. And
Sure.
he's like, I need to get it right this time. And I'm not going to mess it up again. And so that was hard. I was just feeling loss of control. And I just started making so many just terrible choices in my life, and private ones. I was very alone and couldn't handle time away from my kids whenever it was a night without them. So I would work super late. I decided to go back to school, got my master's. I just wanted to keep myself as busy as I possibly could because coming home
Yeah.
and seeing their shoes on the floor and they're not home, I just couldn't handle it.
Mm-hmm. And how old were they when you got divorced?
When I got divorced, let's see, we got divorced in 2013 and they were born in '06 and '08.
Okay, so like 7 and 5. 7 and 5, yeah.
So I
Yeah,
stayed
it's gut wrenching.
yeah. And we made all these agreements of respecting each other. Like, they're never allowed to cry and say, I want mommy, and I come and get them. And they're like, we stick to what the schedule is. But then there was a lot of boundaries that were being set in place once his new wife came in. And so things just started a whole new spiral of anger and frustration. And
Mm-hmm.
then my mother had a stroke, and they told us she wasn't going to make it through the night. So to call the family. And then that became my life. Like, wouldn't leave the hospital room. She wasn't even supposed to be in town. Like, she lived in Florida. She didn't even live here, but she was here for my younger sister was supposed to be getting married. And so she was here for that wedding and
Mm-hmm.
instead had a stroke. So I remember my dad is with me in the hospital. So when the doctor came and got us and she was hooked up to all the machines on life support and they said she's not going to make it. She had a brain bleed and we're going to transport her to Strong, but you need to call your family. And that was hard. And again, um, I have a picture of my dad just holding her hand and kissing her forehead.
Oh my gosh.
And happy story, she did make it through.
Yeah.
My family's
Mm-hmm.
but yes, she was in the ICU and fighting for her life every single night, and I wouldn't leave her side for the first few nights. And then we developed a whole rotation schedule so that someone was always there at the hospital with her at all times. So if she woke up, we would be able to be there. We would had this whole family text thing going with like updates on every time the doctors would come through, and we just really grew super, super close as a family
Mm-hmm.
through that.
Sure.
And my older sister, who I had been somewhat estranged with because of my divorce,
Mm-hmm.
she was just like, I love you so much and I'm sorry. And
Mm-hmm. It's
a lot
amazing
of,
how those difficult moments and those tragic scenarios in your family just can bring you back together, and you realize what matters and what's most important.
yeah. And I mean, she did what I want anyone in my life to do now. If I'm in a bad place with my husband that I'm with now, I want him to intercede,
And dig in.
Yeah. So, um, it was just very healing for us too. And so my mom did recover, had a full recovery. She
It's
was
amazing.
she wound up doing, all of her physical therapy and stuff like that. She was living in my house. So my house became the new house of rotation where family members are taking turns being with her.
Yeah.
And so it was just, I had this house that would just belong to everybody.
Mm-hmm.
Like growing up again as a kid.
Yeah.
When it was just all of our siblings.
Yeah.
Um, and then my mom went back to Florida. And it finally came to a point where my sister-in-law started telling me about this guy that would be perfect for me that worked at Autism Up at the my nephew has autism spectrum disorder along with some other things, and so he was part of that program. And she's like, there's this new program director there and he is perfect for you, he's a Christian. And I'm like, okay, that's like, you know, there's all kinds of Christians out there.
Yeah.
What kind of Christian I am. I'm still
Yeah.
like feeling this like horrible shame and guilt of
Mm-hmm.
hurting the Lord and doing what he hates, and
Mm-hmm.
understanding that and trying to wrap my head around that and
Mm-hmm.
understanding why he hates it when I'm looking at all of the pain that it causes, and the
Mm-hmm.
poor daughters now having to live this split life and never having a
Mm-hmm.
real home that's theirs. Like, it was just
Mm-hmm.
always horrible. And I get why the Lord divorced. He doesn't want that for
Mm-hmm.
us. So I
Well, I remember when I went through my divorce, just the whole God hates divorce, and it is in the Bible. I mean, it's in Malachi, it's in Matthew, it is well documented that God hates divorce, and we could get into all the semantics and what that actually means and why. But the bottom line is God hates divorce because of what it represents, right? So, I never. Much like you, my faith was very experiential, or at least I don't want to put words in your mouth, but that for me, I grew up very like, yeah, I go to church and I go to youth group and I'm in church 2 to 3 nights a week, but it was all very emotional and, I'll say spiritual with air quotes, which it was, but it wasn't. I didn't do a lot of studying. Certainly not in church. It wasn't digging into the word necessarily. It was just a lot of teaching and sermons, and very emotive and charismatic. And on my own, I wasn't digging into the word. So even going through my divorce, my understanding of what God's word actually was limited, very limited, and arguably still is, which is why I'm going back to school to study the word. But when I was going through my divorce, I remember sobbing on the phone with this woman that somebody had connected me to, and she was a pastor. And I just remember sobbing and saying, I was in my apartment and I was freshly moved out, and my kids weren't with me that day, and I was just sobbing and saying, God hates divorce and God hates divorce, but God hates divorce. That I just kept saying it. And she finally was like, stop. She was like, honey, you gotta stop. She was like, do you know why God hates divorce? And I was like, yeah, because he hates divorce. And she's like, okay, God hates divorce because of what it represents. And it represents division and hurt and pain and sin and all the ugly that brings you to divorce. God hates divorce because that means his children are hurting.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'll never forget it. Stopped me in my tracks. And maybe it seems obvious to some people, but to me in that moment, and I've carried it with me over these 12 years, she said, God hates divorce, but God doesn't hate the divorced. And that was such a critical, like, turning point in my understanding. Even then, walking through the shame and the guilt, the fresh wounds of a divorce, and fast forward till now, almost 12 years later, I carry that conversation with me and will till the day I die, because it made me stop and go back and say, okay, I want to understand more of who my father is. I want to understand more of God's character and why does he hate divorce and how does he love? And as a parent, I feel like I can understand much more the way he views us because I feel those ways towards my children, right? His character of compassion and grace and slow to anger and all the wonderful things that God is, I've needed to understand more of who he is and not just the rules and following and did I obey or disobey or did I sin or not sin? Because while that is black and white, he is all-knowing and loving and loves us unconditionally in Jesus, because Jesus died for our sins. It is forgiven. It is all covered.
Mm-hmm.
But that's a really tough pill to swallow when you don't know, and I mean know in your heart who he is.
Right. Yes.
Sorry to go on that tangent, but I feel like it's important in this conversation especially, but it is important because knowing him, knowing his word is critical. Knowing him is really what it's about.
Right. And having a heart that pursues him. Like, I didn't pursue him. It's just so different. It's my faith now is like night and day. I almost feel like I was telling my husband, I was like feeling an urge to be baptized again because of just like coming into a whole new understanding of him. Like you said, like it was when you dig in to know him in that gnosko kind of know him, like, you do that by spending time with him and in his word and understanding and praying in conversation with him. He speaks to you through his word, through prayer, through worship, through other people at church, and even non-believers he'll speak through. So he reveals things when you're ready for them, when you have a heart open for them, instead of I am a good student that is going to say, okay, I have to do X, Y, Z. This is what this says, and this is what I'm going to do. Instead of like, that's a works-based faith, and that's not the faith that we ask for. That's not the love. That's not love. That's at all. And that's, as humans, we think that way because we do things to make our parents happy. You know, you watch what made my dad happy was when we got good grades or when we did the right things. So it's like that's what you grow up with. Your view with the Lord is like, okay, he's because he says so. He's the boss, and you don't really understand the heart behind it until until almost
that's it. That's exactly it. It's understanding the heart behind it, which is what we want our kids to do too.
Well,
right?
Exactly. It's becoming a parent yourself that then you can start to see all the things you don't want your child to do and why and what. It's not because I waited my whole life to be a parent so I could tell them they can't do this. Like, no.
Well, and it's always been a running joke in my life that I used to, say, like, I grew up hearing because I said so, because I said so, because I said so. And it's been a funny thing, but I have dug in a lot with my kids to say, not because I said so, I'm going to give you all the reasons and talk your ear off until you're tuning me out, because I want you to understand my heart for you
Yeah.
is to protect you. My heart for you is for you to make good choices because I want to see you grow and succeed. And you're only going to do that if you listen to these rules that you hate. But I don't care that you hate them because I love you, and that's why I'm making you do. It's this whole like I'll go on and on till the death. Like my daughter would sit here and tell you like, oh my gosh, okay, too much explaining, but I over explain my reasoning for my anger, for my frustration, for my sadness, for my rules, because my response that I always received was because I said so.
Right.
And it's different generations and different parenting styles, and lots goes into that, which we don't need to get into. But I definitely have swung the other way on that because I'm like, I so badly want them to understand,
Same.
I don't have to pound it in.
My oldest daughter, they tell her she should be a lawyer because she can just argue her way through anything, because that's how I was with her. I would over explain everything. There was going to be no way of getting out of like following what my rules were, what I say. And I remember my father being like, why are you exhausting yourself trying to explain yourself to a 3-year-old? And he's like, because I said so. Like, that's it.
Yep. It's definitely generational.
But yeah, so it is, I think that, like we said, the heart, knowing the Lord's heart, that's what becomes the most important. And so anyways, so I met, I did not want to meet my now husband. I was just so nervous, and there's other people that know him. I'm like, I can't let people down. What if I don't like him or whatever? But if he doesn't like me, now we're letting people down. I just was like so scared to, I never wanted to be set up. I just wanted something to be natural and organic, and if at all. I don't want to be wrong again. I can't go through this again. It was a death. It was like everything I was, my whole identity was wrapped up in that marriage. We were dating when I was 18, living together when I was 18. And now we got divorced when I was 30. So I'm like going through that whole thing. I think you go through a whole life crisis when you turn 30. So it was just like,
which is comical now being in our 40s. It's like 30,
right?
But it does seem so young.
Yes. So I agreed to meet him. I was applying to be on the board of directors there anyway, so we had a introduction. So then we leave, and he messaged me on Facebook, and he made a joke. He was just like, oh, I'm so sorry I had to run off. I had an emergency. One of the kids needed peanut butter and jelly. And I'm like laughing. I was like, that's really, that's cute. And he was just funny. And we just kind of carried on. So we had planned to see each other at the next, he's like, are you going to be there? I said, yeah, I'll see you there. And then my mother got her stroke. So he had followed along our updates and prayer requests, and he had donated to her GoFundMe page for some of the things that she had to go through, and he had shared some really great verses, and I just remember being like, this is so sweet. But we didn't talk. It was a whole year after that.
Oh my gosh.
Well,
I didn't realize that.
Yes, and it was like, and we'll still laugh. I'm like, we could have been together a whole nother year. And he was like, I needed to go through the things that I went through in that year of my life. And I'm like, yeah, I guess I did too, but I could have done without him.
It's been a lot more fun going through it together. Yeah.
But so it was a whole year after that at the next year's kite flight gathering that I saw him, and I'm like kind of making eye contact with him, but not. And then I like see him walk by, and I just like step in front of him like, hi.
Remember me?
I am so shy. I'm not someone that starts conversation at all. And so we just started talking for a bit, and it was then that night that he messaged me, and we were like, let's get together. And our first date was at Canal Days. We finally find a quiet spot, and he started talking about my nephew, and there was just some things that I just could tell. I just knew. I'm like, there's everything about this man. And I'm like, I could tell. The Lord was like, you're going to marry him. And that night. And I'm like, that doesn't make sense. He's never been married before. He doesn't have kids. He's a Christian. He's got this wonderful faith in this. Like, I'm not someone he wants. And I don't know that I want someone that doesn't know how to be a parent or what this kind of pain feels like, or, I don't want him just to be at this point in his life where it's like, okay, he was, in his younger 30s. We got married when we were 35, but I didn't want to feel like, okay, he's like, oh, I'm wasting my life away. I only have a few years left. I need to just marry somebody already. And that's like,
Sure.
I was terrified of it, but
Yeah.
I still have the text message that I sent my younger sister after that date. She's like, how did it go? And I'm like, I just went on my first date ever. And she's like, oh my gosh, I love that. And then I didn't hear from him. And
come on, are you kidding?
He was such a gentleman.
He didn't text you, message you, nothing?
Messaged me when we both got home.
Okay.
Had a great night, thank you. It was very sweet, but friendly. Not anything more.
How long did it take him?
I messaged him.
Okay.
And I said, all right, listen, I don't play games. I get it. I've been on dates before where I'm just not into the person. And I'd much rather that just be out there now. And I don't want to, wait or wonder or just, I really enjoyed our time. I really want to get together again, but completely understand if I'm just not the package you're looking for. And
so how long after your date was this?
Like 2 days.
Okay. I mean, not terrible, but not great, Phil. What the heck? Okay, go on. And by the way, I've never even met him, so hi, Phil. I'm calling you out.
I had sent like this long text. I was like all worried about like how, and I was like, you know what? I don't care. Like I'm at this point in my life where I wasn't even planning on getting married again, and God thinks He knows everything. Then we'll see how how this goes.
Yep.
And he replied back and said, I'm really glad that you messaged me. I had a really wonderful time. And then said, what buzzkill, I'm not having sex before marriage. And
that he just came out with that.
Yes.
In that message.
Yeah. And I'm like, okay.
Were you like, I'm sorry, did I seem like I was asking for that? That was bold.
Yes. Then I almost like so my gut reaction was, he's definitely not into me.
Well, clearly, since you don't just want to get in my pants, you must not be that into me.
It's like, I mean, really, that was my experience in any kind of relationship, was like, that was all I wanted. And that was like,
sure.
So to say that, it's like, yeah, I'm not having sex before marriage, so, whatever. And I'm like, okay, so
was he just expecting that you wouldn't want to be in that kind of a relationship because you had been married? I mean, he knew you were a believer, right? Like,
yes, he did. So no, I think it was just also knowing, I don't know, I think being at our age too, and just that, yes, I've been married before and, wasn't a virgin.
Well, you have 2 kids, Danielle. It's not really a secret.
Well, anyways. Yeah, and at first I was like, okay, can't be serious. Like, he's probably like, I just didn't think that was a thing. To me, I thought that was like an old school. Anyways, yeah, I mean, I lived with my ex-husband when I was 18, moved in. Like, this is what you do. Do people really do that? That's how we felt. Now, yes, that is what you do. For watching and anyone else, and I could go in a whole conversation about that, but that's a whole other podcast. Anyways.
Yeah, sure is. Part 2. Stay tuned.
Yeah. But then I felt so relieved. I was like,
as soon as you got that message, you were like, you could like, right?
Yes, I get that. I don't have to question his intentions. I don't have to wonder, is he putting on a front until he gets what he wants? I felt so safe, so secure in that. I was like, I don't ever have to worry about anything, really. I just felt so safe with him. I was also terrified. I'm like, oh no, he thinks I'm a really good Christian, and I'm not.
I get that response too.
So I was like, no, he's going to find out that I'm just not as good as him, and he's going to reject me, or, I was just, nothing was going to be what it was going to be. But
isn't it amazing how in almost any situation we find a way to make ourselves not good enough?
Yes. Still
Yeah, it's
all the time.
crazy.
All the time.
Mhm.
So I was just like, I think that's what helped me open up. I could let down all of my walls. I could be so vulnerable with him. I could just share everything. And I just
Mhm.
did. I felt like that. And when you don't have that going on before marriage, you're actually talking to each other. You're
Yeah.
actually pursuing one another for who they are and
Mhm.
their heart and everything that's important to them and everything in life and just all these wonderful conversations that were
Yeah.
so healing and amazing. And it was, I think, just day after day, confirmation after confirmation. But even still, there was a time where I'm like,
Mhm.
how is he not proposing to me?
So how long did you date before he proposed?
9 months.
Okay.
I
I
know,
mean,
but
hardly a long time.
35. He said he wanted kids, and I'm like, do you know how this works? Like,
That's hilarious. Well, I mean, okay, but to your point about the conversations and getting to know each other, I will say my experience with my husband too, night and day. I remember we'd go out and he would pull out a piece of paper every time. And it sounds so formal, but if you know Joe, like it's not at all. It's very funny actually. But he would write questions. And I think he just my father-in-law just brought this up the other day. He's like, "Do you guys keep your lists?" And I was like, "Lists? What are you talking about?" And he was referring to our dating season, which we dated for a year, just over a year before we got engaged. I mean, he really took his time.
yeah,
Just kidding. And y'all would have been like, "What the heck?" But he would pull out these lists, and at first I was like, oh, this is kind of funny, but like it became, I'm like, where's the list? You didn't write a list? What kind of a date is this? We had to have real conversation. And we would like just go through these questions, like some ridiculous, some really deep, some not deep at all. But it was like I look back on that year of dating as this like most precious, sweet time of like actually digging in and learning about each other. And just, he was my best friend from the jump. But we grew so much over that year because of his intentions and because of his like his purpose was to know my heart and to know me, not to have a girlfriend, not to get into bed, not to get married. I mean, we both were coming to the table. I mean, different than your situation in that he had been divorced, had 3 little kids. I mean, so we were coming together with equally broken, very different, but broken stories. So he was going into this like, I need to be intentional and I need to pursue this person in a way that's not just respectful. Like, what are we doing if we're not going deep? If we're not digging in, we don't have time to waste, you know? That time was so sweet and so precious. And I'm just grateful that we dated the way we did.
yes, yes. And it helped for me having my girls. Like,
Yeah.
I probably would have been really tempted to want to stay at his place or, knowing
Sure.
that it wasn't going to go too far or, but
Mhm.
I had boundaries. I had something that I wanted to show my girls what a
Mhm.
Christian relationship looks like, what dating looks like.
Yeah.
So I loved all of that. I loved how he also has a big family. He's one of 5 kids. And
Okay.
I remember being terrified to meet his mom because
Mhm.
I'm like, what mother wants this for her son? A
Mm.
divorced woman with kids. Like, I want the best for my son, not.
Yeah. I mean, I felt the same way though, and Joe was divorced himself, but I had those same emotions and that same fear meeting my in laws because I'm like, but he could go. I mean, we were in our very early 30s at the time. It was like, he could go meet a young
Mhm.
virgin from the church and bring her into the fold, and she could be but here I was, and it's scary. And my in laws are wonderful and we're so gracious and all of that. I can imagine how scary that was for you. But
Yes.
I felt the same, even having him coming from a divorce himself. So it is, I totally get those feelings because it's a scary thing meeting parents as a kid or as a teenager or in your 20s
Right.
when you're dating. You add all of these dynamics and you're like, holy hell, what are these questions going to be and how do I
Yes.
answer?
Like, I was not ready to go through this again. Like,
Yeah. Yep.
what?
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
I was terrified. And it was at one of his softball games. And he was like, my mom and dad are coming, just so you know. And I was like, okay. I was like freaking out, went and bought a plant from Wegmans to bring to her. And when she comes walking up to me, and she just gave me this hug of like, she's just the most wonderful mother in the whole world.
Mm-hmm.
The way she hugged me, I felt a love that I didn't know.
That you needed.
Yes. I remember I had put, a mushy post about him up on Instagram or something, and my sisters immediately, they Marco Polo'd me, and they're like, okay, we've been talking about something, and we weren't gonna ask you, but now we are. They're like, there's this trip to Israel that our old pastor is doing, and we want to send our husbands on it, and we think you should send Phil with our husbands. And I'm like, we're not engaged. Like, what kind of,
Yeah.
like, that's pretty manipulative. Now you have to marry me. I'm sending you to Israel, and
Yeah, right.
like, because they just love him, and they just, like, they mesh so well together. And I'm like, okay, I'm in. I'm freaking out about it, but I am. I'm going
Mm-hmm.
to gift him this gift because I know it'll mean the world to him, and I do know that
Mm-hmm.
we will be married one day, even if we're not engaged right now.
Uh,
So I was talking to his sister-in-law, trying to like put together something on how to present it to him and give it to him. And so I give it to him, and he was just like speechless. Like, he didn't know, even he had no words. And he is really amazing with words, but he had no words, and it was just a wonderful moment. Well, the day after that, he proposed, and he had already had the ring and was planning on proposing, and then didn't want to upstage my gift to him. It was
oh,
like, game on. We got engaged on June 29th, and we were married on October 27th of the same
okay.
year. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it was a very short engagement. I was like, we're doing this.
Yeah. We did the same thing though. We got engaged end of September, married December, because we were kind of like, all right, but once we know and once we're committing to like, this is it, then like, let's just do it. Let's just let's just have the wedding. Let's be together. Let's start our family. And for us, start our family meant blend our family, not have more children, but that changed because God had other plans. But yeah, I mean, we did the same thing. I just think second time around, it's like when you know and you're ready, there's nothing to put off and to plan a whole big thing for that you can't do in a couple months.
And I know from the first time what a horrible experience it is planning a wedding, because it's
Yeah,
stressful.
it's listen, if our kids are listening at all, which they're probably not, but maybe someday they'll be like, what's this? And they can come back here and listen to how we told them not to have a big wedding. When I got married the first time, my father offered me the cost of the wedding in a check or the wedding, no check. And I was like, I want the wedding. So stupid for so many reasons. What in the world? But here we are. We live and learn. We live in. Yeah. And being a step parent is a whole other game. It really is.
I felt like I just had somebody with me now. We're going to figure it out. So it was a different experience for us. And my husband has been amazing through all of it without having any kind of experience of how to deal with, other step parents or, blended families, like those types of things. Like, that's not in his family. So it was all new for him. And he is just so patient and kind and loving and all the things that I wasn't. So now we're building a house. I've got a new job. I'm pregnant. And I get pregnant again, and we're just so excited. And then I lose the baby. And I remember my mom really talking to me through that. And my older sister had her miscarriages. So she was really helpful through those.
Sure.
That. And just, I remember my mom, like, they hadn't seen the heartbeat yet. So I'm like, you know what? I don't know what's going to happen, but I'm going to enjoy this baby and being a mom, and until they tell me that it's not anymore. And so I was just so upset when I still lost the baby. I was like, I was being so faithful and so like just trusting in you, and
Yeah.
but it was like it was short lived. It was just like the Lord just put it on my heart. It was like, you don't need to know all the reasons why. You know me.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like, that's what I needed. I just needed that. I just needed that
Sure.
understanding that I don't get to know all the reasons why or all the things that happen or all the behind the scenes, but I do know him and I know that
Mm-hmm.
he is um all the time. So it was just resting in that. And I got pregnant again right away, pretty much right away.
Yeah, but talking about a choice, faith being a choice, or choosing to believe and say out loud and accept that he is good when he doesn't feel good.
Yeah.
That's a whole other level of faith. I mean, and we could get into all of the theological arguments about, does he allow it? Does he cause it? I know what I believe, and I do believe he allows things to happen because we don't know. And going through a miscarriage is one of the hardest things to understand when you very much feel the life that you're carrying. When I had my second miscarriage, which followed a very tumultuous time for Joe and I, and was much later in life than my first miscarriage, I found out I was pregnant, and my husband had had a vasectomy 10 years prior. So finding out I was pregnant in the first place, especially coming off such a difficult season for us, was like, whoa, this has to be the Lord's will. Like he's bringing our family together in a way we never even thought possible. And so this is such a miracle, and like we're just going to celebrate. And we had come out of this like pit of a time, and we were like, okay, like this is it now. This is what we focus on. And from the jump, there were concerns about that pregnancy for a lot of reasons, but you were saying about the heartbeat, it was like we went and they were like, well, nothing's measuring where it should be, but it is so early. And, because of all the questions with your age and the vasectomy and all the things, like, let's just keep checking. And we kept checking for like 2 months. And I would go back and go back and go back. And it was like, well, your levels are going up and now they're not going up, but they're going up, but not enough, but like maybe.
Yeah.
And so all of those questions were like, okay, but through that, I chose to pray and believe, okay, Lord, I just remember, I remember standing in the shower every day and just putting my hands on my stomach and saying, my baby's healthy. Thank you, Lord, for this life. Thank you for giving it to me. Thank you for giving it to us. I trust you. I trust you. I trust you. And I trusted and I trusted and I trusted, and we still lost that baby. And that was one of the hardest things I've ever gone through. Even having gone through a miscarriage before and watching friends and family members lose pregnancies, lose babies, lose children. I've walked through that with so many friends, more than I wish I had. So I also had this guilt of, okay, but it was so short-lived, and maybe it wasn't meant to be. But you wrestle with all these questions in faith. But I chose to believe. And then I hit rock bottom and I just went, I don't know if I can do this. Anyways, just talking about faith as a choice, I remember fighting against so badly, wanting to be like, none of this makes sense. I don't believe anymore. I don't trust, I don't believe. But in my crying out in that time, when I continued to choose to cry out. And I told God how mad I was at him. And I have a couple of friends who know how mad I was at him, who sat next to me and held my hand, who gently and graciously prayed for me and prayed with me through that. But I one time was sitting in my car screaming. I remember just yelling at him like, why would you do this? This doesn't make any sense. I didn't ask for this in the first place. And then you gave this to me and you took it away. And I heard him just almost audibly say, stop. You will have baby. And I felt like a lunatic. And I thought, I can't tell anybody this. Like, I can't tell my husband that God just told me I'm going to have a baby. He had a vasectomy. This shouldn't have even happened. We don't even know what's going on. What he's going to want to go fix it. So Anyways, this is a very long tangent, but it's in those moments of like, you have to choose, and choosing sometimes is not it's definitely not the default.
Yeah.
And it's definitely not easy.
One thing my pastor says, I'm not going to give up what I know for what I don't know. And I do know his love. I do know he's good. And I do know that it's filtered through his hands. And that has to be enough. I'm not gonna forego that for anything else.
So you went through your miscarriage. I want to bring it back to you. Sorry.
And we got pregnant again right away. So there was just like so much going on. And then I was so excited because, I mean, this was all through COVID, and we were getting a house built, but then got put on pause because no workers could come in and do things. It was just like all of this stress. And we had sold our house. Now we're living in this little townhouse, and I'm pregnant, and it's just, I don't know if you've ever built a house. There's all these decisions, and we still are not knowing each other. We're like in a way that we can do this. So he's just got this huge, like, artistic, he can, like, see it, and I do accounting. It's, like, there is black and white. So I have to see it. I can't, and so we're just, like, having all these fights, and I'm, like, even right down to wall colors. And she was coming in town. She had all of these plans of, like, coming in town for my brother's wedding, for my sister's baby, for my baby, and my other sister's baby. Like, she was so excited. She had all these flights booked out, and she came and met my now sister-in-law, my brother's wife, and had a wonderful dinner with them, with my dad. And she came and visited us, saw our new house, and it was just like, oh my gosh. She's like, Danielle, you are so blessed. And I would just love, hearing her say that. And so she went home and she passed away.
Oh my gosh. I'm so sorry.
I wasn't super close with her. I got closer with her after I got divorced. It was just kind of like this badge that we wore together, like this something we had in common, I guess. And I would come visit her a lot with my kids, and she loved that. My mom struggled with a lot in life, mental health and drinking and things like that. So we weren't super close, but it was 1 month before my daughter was due, and it was right before 2 months before my brother's wedding. And so I don't know what it was, but they said it was a heart attack. It was just strange, but she didn't take the best care of herself either. The hormones already after having a baby. I finally, there came a point with my husband and I where I didn't think our marriage was going to survive. We fought a lot. I was going through his phone and just feeling like I wasn't his best friend. I wasn't getting all of him. He didn't care to share who he was with me. And it wasn't on purpose. He was working at his mom's house a lot, and I just broke all of these things that I finally was like digging in. I'm like, don't you know what leave and cleave means? And he's like,
this was after you lost your mom.
Yes. After I lost my mom and after my daughter was born. So she was only about a month old, I think, if that. Yeah, she wasn't even a month old yet.
But here you are losing even the chance to have that relationship with your mom.
Yeah.
And so you're looking to your husband to be your everything, and you're like jealous for his time and his attention and his heart.
Yeah.
I get it.
Yeah.
I don't get it. I haven't walked in your shoes in that way, but I mean, it makes sense. It makes sense that you were struggling in that way and looking to him to fill that void because he's your husband. He's your other half.
Yeah. But also in hindsight too, I think, and we bring this up in our premarital too, is you can't make your spouse can't fill what only the Lord can.
Sure. Well, and just because you can explain something doesn't make it okay.
Right. So I just finally, I'm like, I'm calling up the pastor at our church, we had just started going to this new church because we had just moved and built our house. And I'm like, and he was not exactly for it, but finally just went kicking and screaming. And we only had 2 sessions with that pastor. And that pastor was just, we love him to death, but he was just so like, he's like, do you hear this? She wants you. She wants to know you. And he's like, it's a beautiful thing. Of course you love your family, but now this is who you married, and this
This
person
is your
wants,
family.
yeah, this is who wants you, and this is who you are giving yourself to. And so when we left there, he did a whole lot of studying in the word, and he did a whole outline and all kinds of things, and he was going to know it inside and out. And we go to our next meeting, and Phil led the whole thing basically. And he's like, is what it means. This is what
Let
it
me teach you this.
was. And he's like, and you know what? He's like, my brain is not, I don't get it. He goes, my heart, I don't feel it. But I do know this is what he says. And this is what I'm going to do. And I knew I could trust him. Like at that point, it was a whole new level of safety and comfort in knowing that I was married to somebody that was going to say,
I choose you.
I choose what's right. So
yeah, but that's you too. I mean, as his wife, and as your husband, he was choosing you. And I feel like,
but in a healthy way, because there could be other things.
Yes. But I feel like you accepting that too.
Yeah.
Sounds like it was hard. Yeah. And maybe still is a little bit, like accepting that he actually was choosing you, choosing your marriage, choosing your family, which is you and him and your kids over anything else. It's not over his family or over somebody else specifically, but choosing you was important, and he did that, and that can be really hard to accept.
Yes. And I knew no matter what, like I've already lived enough in my life that saw the storms coming. They're just like Nanette said, it doesn't say the storm's not going to come if you build on rock. It's the storm will come, whether you build on rock or sand. What's going to survive? And knowing these storms are going to come, and what is our foundation, and it is the word of God, and he is going to stay true to it, and he is going to lead us that way. And I feel safe in anything. Like when it's God against the whole world, we have the majority. Like it's what else? And so we grew so close together. We've really grown so much. So it was just like, it changed everything. And now we're on fire for the Lord. We're on fire for what the word says, and understanding it and understanding his heart, and just living it and teaching it in a way of like, it's sort of like when you go to a restaurant and you had like the most amazing dinner and you're like, everyone must know about this place. Like, gotta eat this food. Like, like we're never afraid to tell anyone what a great movie was or what a great restaurant was. Sure. But we shy away from telling people about the Lord because we don't know it all. And but that's what makes it wonderful, is to live it out, and with such passion. And when you do that together, like, there's nothing else.
There's nothing better. Yeah, it's the best. Well, and that's part of why I wanted to do this podcast too, right? It's like, I don't have all the answers. That's part of the beauty of the conversation, whether it's about specifically the word of God or Jesus or Christianity or the church or just life. And what does it look like to be divorced and a Christian? And what does it look like to be divorced at all and then remarried, married young or married older, or having kids? I mean, all the things that we're touching base on. Like it's difficult walking through this life. For me, doing it without my faith, I don't think that I don't know that I would be alive. And I don't say that to be dramatic. I've been in very low moments where I should not be here, but for the grace of God. Listening to you and saying, you're like, we're so on fire for the Lord. And honestly, I just in talking to you and knowing you from, even social media over the years, I know you guys are on fire for each other too.
Very much. Yeah.
So, but that's an experience in marriage too that I'm passionate about sharing with other people too. But knowing now and how to dig in and that it is important to be best friends with your spouse and to be on fire for the Lord and for each other, how awesome that is, and how how fantastic that is to go through life like that. I just am so passionate about wanting others to understand they can do that too. I want my kids to want that and strive for that and not be willing to accept less than that. And I want other people, our friends and family that are married or looking to be married, like I want them to look at that as, not look at me as an example, but be like, this can be really great.
Yeah.
Because I went through life thinking marriage was just awful. That's why I accepted so much that I did in my first marriage. And a lot of that is on me as well. But I just was like, no, marriage is like, well, whatever. Like, this is just the person I'm stuck with, right? Like that. But I very much don't feel that way now. I'm like, I get to do life with my best friend.
Yes.
And I love his face. And I just want to squeeze him all the time. But it's so important to like know that, but also share that. And that's why I wanted to do this, because I feel like you bring so much vulnerability and like passion to the table when it comes to marriage, when it comes to parenting, when it comes to your experience. And I just think like your story is one that is inspiring. It's got a lot of brokenness that you've been so gracious to share, that I think more people than not can relate. And as sad and as that is, that we can connect over our tragedies, I think the beauty of something like this is that the more we share, the more healing opportunities the Lord can bring. Mm-hmm. That's my hope.
Yeah.
Because even in talking to you one-on-one, I feel like there's this healing that comes from feeling understood.
Yes.
If we can do that at all for anyone else, like there's nothing better than that.
And there's so many decisions and seasons of my life that I'm not proud of or wouldn't want to share. But then it's like, I don't want it all to be for naught. Like mm-hmm. It's gotta be, if you don't learn from it, then it's a failure. It's, you have to learn and grow and mm-hmm. share it with others. That's what we do.
Yeah. And I think there's part of the experience of being in your 40s. You reach this point where you're like, yep, got nothing to hide. So here it is. Right. All the good and all the bad. And I own all the bad as much as I own the good. Yeah. And so take it or leave it, you know? And there's real healing in that too.
Yeah, there is. There really is.
Yeah. Well, you have a beautiful family. You are blessed, extremely blessed. And I feel blessed to know you and to call you friend.
Thank you.
And I really am grateful for you being willing to share so much of your story, because if nothing else, I personally feel like the Lord has used you in a way that has brought some healing to me. So thank you for that.
I'm very grateful for our friendship and for you doing this.
I still don't know what I'm doing. I'm not even quite sure that the microphone is plugged in. So that'll be fun when I go back to look at this, if I'm just silent the whole time. But the fact that you can hear me is encouraging. So I'll take that.